In this video, I ask people about happiness, what makes them happy, and if they feel like people are more happy now than they used to be. I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone who participated. If you like this video, please subscribe, and if you have any thoughts, please do comment them below. So thank you for speaking with me. I just wanted to ask you, do you think people nowadays are more happy than they used to be?
That's the thing, like if you compare it to like the Middle Ages where everyone was dying of the plague, I think definitely people are more happy nowadays.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot easier because of social media and stuff to see people who are really happy and people who are really unhappy. So there's like quite a big spectrum between. I mean, I personally think people are happier today in general just because quality of life is a little bit better than it used to be if we kind of look at a grand spectrum of things in comparison, because you think, oh, you know, someone else has got so much more than me, or maybe you're burnt out from working all the time and that makes you seem, feel less happy.
So finally, what makes you happy?
Ooh, that's a good question. I enjoy life, I like spending time with friends, I like doing things that make me happy, I like going to the gym, I like painting, music, sports, all the good stuff.
Thank you for sitting down with me, sir. I'm wondering, what makes you happy? Okay, sat down, being cold. Fair enough. So thank you very much for speaking with me. What's your name?
Philip.
Philip, nice to meet you, Philip. I'm Harvey. So the first question I have for you is, do you think people nowadays are more or less happy than they used to be?
Hard to say. I ought to declare an interest. I'm an archivist, so I have access to overseas and domestic records from the past. So if the documentary sources are anything to go by, people have always had that tension between unhappiness and happiness.
Right.
I don't think human beings change much over the centuries.
Okay.
But I have a certain perspective on that.
Yeah. So in today's climate, for example, more antidepressants than ever are being prescribed in the NHS. That would indicate to me that there's more unhappiness, or the tools to tackle the unhappiness are maybe not the correct ones. What do you think about that?
I don't have sufficient knowledge to make a professional judgment, but my suspicion is that in the past the struggle for survival was such that people had less time to worry about their mental health, for example. If you think that in Victorian Britain, the vast majority of the population were not far from subsistence, in those situations, you prioritise what you have to do to survive.
Yeah, how am I going to eat?
Now, we fortunately are not in that situation, or at least most of us are not.
Yeah.
But we may see a change back to that 19th century level of poverty over time, particularly with the rise of food banks and maybe the gradual decline of welfare services that are intended to mitigate those inequalities. So we'll have to see, but time will tell. But the evidence is that human beings have always struggled to make themselves feel happy, and of course the other big change may well be that formal religion is less significant than it was in the past, and that maybe has had an impact.
Yeah, I agree, to be honest. And
Just finished the chapel there on the right.
yeah, I'm very interested in psychology and in philosophy, and I don't class myself as religious, but I am quite spiritual in the sense that I believe that a lot of the benefits of religion that we've lost over time, I feel like we don't necessarily need religion in order to have those in our lives. So we can be, we can live a good, virtuous life, we can be happy without necessarily being religious.
Yeah, I think if you have a sense of the numinous, that actually can give you a sense of perspective. Particularly if you realise you have a finite time in this existence, whether you believe there's a life after this life or not, just having that sense that there is something greater in ourselves can put a lot of perspective on one's petty troubles. So, I personally have a deist belief. I go to friends meeting at Society of Friends, the Quakers, so I do have a spiritual side. But a lot of people don't. But I think that is part of the equation of trying to make sense of the world and your place in it.
People might find more joy, for example, in being alone, for example, or maybe studying university work or whatever it is, chasing the bag, as people call it. They might find more happiness in that as opposed to previous things that people might have considered genuine happiness, which I still consider to be happiness, maybe like having the right people around you, actually being content with life.
What makes you happy?
What makes me happy? I'm going to be honest. I'm a Christian. I find a lot of happiness in my faith and
Yeah.
in God. Regardless of the situation,
Yeah.
I know that God loves me and that
Yeah.
I can always be happy.
Firstly, I want to ask you, do you think that people nowadays are more happy than they used to be or less happy?
I don't know, and I don't think I can say because there's 8 billion people on Earth,
Yeah.
and I know it seems like the Earth is kind of little, but it's actually not. Like in the United States, prior to 1940, there was something like I don't know the exact number, but it's like risen like 8-fold the amount of people who have prescriptions to psychiatric drugs. And like I grew up in a household where my mom was like quite severely depressed, and she took antidepressants like of all types and classifications.
Yeah.
And when I was 17, I was hospitalized and diagnosed as bipolar.
Okay.
And bipolar was only added to the DSM, I like to add like the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, in like the 1980s. So I don't really think it's like a thing people can be. So I think joy is like more important than happiness.
Okay.
For me, in my life.
Find joy?
I think joy is like an act of direct resistance to like society that's trying to control you. And like not all societies and not all ideological agendas are like about control, but ones that are like trying to control joy, I think. Like I think about systems of power that have impacted my joy, like definitely like my gender and my upbringing, like as someone who's put into like kind of like forced into the world via like the reproductive rights of a nuclear family.
Yeah.
Like I think that stopped me feeling joy for so long and stopped my mother feeling joy and made her depressed.
Well, thank you very much for speaking with me. What's your name?
Farhad.
Farhad, nice to meet you. I'm Harvey. So, do you think people nowadays are more or less happy than they used to be?
You know what? I think it's the same.
Same?
Yeah, I think history just repeats itself.
Right.
It's like the same. How do I even explain it? It's like the same feeling in different situations.
Right, okay.
You get it? So I feel like it's the same kind of feeling, and yeah, man.
Yeah. So, what makes you happy?
I think my family, like
Yeah.
my family mostly, like being at home, my parents. Obviously, I'm at uni quite a lot, so when I go home, I just chill
Yeah.
with my parents, my siblings. I think that's like the best feeling for me personally. Innit?
Finally, and it's a bit of a personal one, but what makes you happy?
A good country walk. I had a rural upbringing with some very pleasant conversations with friends. So it's a mixture of enjoying the environment and its many beauties, as well as enjoying one's relationships with friends and family. And to some extent, what else goes on in the world passes over one. Which is why, thankfully, we're not in Ukraine. or Tibet or many other parts of the world where private lives are actually disrupted by the power of external events, and that could be climatic or political.
Yeah, we are very fortunate in this country. Thank you very much for your
You're very
time.
welcome. Have a
All the
very
best.
happy Christmas.
Thank you. You too. Merry Christmas.